let's talk about something. We have this rule in fiqh, in Islamic law. It's not a rule, it's a principle. It's called istishab. Okay? And this istishab shows itself many places in Islamic rulings. What does istishab mean? What does it tell us to do? It tells you to take this principle of istishab, tells you to take whatever you had, whatever state that you were in, or whatever state something had that you were 100% sure about, until you're not 100% sure that that state has changed, continue assuming that the previous state has remained. You will understand what I mean when I give you examples. For example, you have wudu. You have wudu. 2 hours pass. Now in these 2 hours, you're not sure, did I do something that broke my wudu or not? So the previous state that you had was wudu. You were 100% sure about it. Now you're not sure, did it break or not? No matter how much you think, you can't remember. What's the ruling here? That principle of istishab says, did you have a state that you were 100% sure about? Yes, I did. Now, did it break or not? I don't know. So you're not 100% sure you broke it? No, I'm not 100% sure. I'm 90% sure, I'm 80% sure. It doesn't matter. You still have wudu then. You assume that you have wudu. So can I pray with this? Of course you can. Can I touch Quran with this? Of course you can. Vice versa. I know I lost my wudu. Now there's a good chance that I made wudu after it. What does istishab say? Istishab says, what were you sure about? I'm sure that I didn't have wudu. Okay, so now that time has passed, you're not sure you made wudu or not. The rule is that you have to assume you don't have wudu and you have to make wudu for anything that depends on wudu. Okay? Same thing with ghusl. Same thing with the adala of Imam Jama'ah. For example, Imam Jama'ah has to be adil, right? It has to be a person that doesn't sin. Now, I knew this person a week ago. I was sure that he's adil. Now a week has passed. Maybe he did something wrong in this 1 week. Still, istishab says you assume that he has the same state that you were 100% sure before. This rule applies usually in a lot of places. But still, it's always good to make sure if the ruling is the same or not. For example, for salat, sometimes istishab will not apply. For example, after I'm done with my namaz, I doubt whether or not my namaz, I did it right or not. 2 days pass, I'm not sure, did I do it right or not? Here, istishab doesn't apply, they will tell you. Another principle applies. Sometimes there are overriding principles. For example, in this situation, in this scenario, your salat is valid. But I'm not sure. I knew I was doing my salat right, but there was a point where I knew I hadn't finished my salat yet. There's a chance I made a mistake and all of that. They say it's fine. Although you're in a state of your salat, you're not sure it being acceptable or not. Here, since your doubt is coming after the salat, then you don't have to pay attention to that doubt. There's other times, sometimes there are other overriding principles. But at the end of the day, the point I'm trying to make is we have this principle. Now, with fasting we have the same principle. We have the same principle in fasting. For example, I don't know if it's Maghrib time yet or not, and I want to have something to eat. I feel like, maybe it's iftar time. Most probably, it's iftar time. No. What was the previous state that you're 100% sure about? 10 minutes ago, I was sure it's not iftar. 9 minutes ago, I was sure it's not iftar. 8 minutes ago, I was sure. 7, 6, 5, 4, till now. Still, I'm not sure it has arrived yet. What was the last state that I had yaqeen and certainty about? That it's not iftar time. So the only thing that can break that is a certainty that iftar has arrived. This is istishab. Now let's go to Fajr time now. Same thing applies again. If the calendar, for example, says 4:06, 4:07 is Fajr time. 4 o'clock, I'm sure it's not Fajr time yet, or 3:55. 3:56, I'm sure it's not. 57, I'm sure it's not. 58, I'm sure it's not. Until it reaches 4:05, 4:06, 4:07. Are you sure that Fajr has arrived yet or not? I'm not sure yet, but the calendar says so. Still, if the calendar says, it depends on, and I've explained this before, right? Depends on you, it's subjective. If you become 100% sure because of the calendar that 4:07 is Fajr time, what if 4:07 and 2 seconds? Sometimes you have something in your mouth, you want to swallow it, right? 2 seconds, here and there. Well, Istishab says, if you're not sure that iftar 4:07 and 2 seconds, then it's okay to swallow even. Istishab says that previous state was what? That it's not Fajr time yet. Not Fajr, not Fajr. The only way to break it is to become sure that Fajr has arrived. As I said before though, ihtiyat is good. Ihtiyat is good. Maybe you stop at 4, maybe you stop at 4:05. But what really counts is this, to break that istishab. There is one exception here though, another overriding rule that we have here. They say you're allowed to eat until you're sure that Fajr has actually arrived, but if later on, through whatever means and for whatever reason, you do find out that 4:07 and 0 seconds was actually Fajr time, then yes, you will have to make that day up if you ate after. Although you didn't do anything haram, because istishab allowed you to. You get what I'm saying? But if you find out later that it had actually arrived, although you did something permissible, but still you have to make that day up. The only time you don't have to make it up, even if you find out that Fajr had actually arrived, is if you had gone outside yourself, looked at the sky, and done a little bit of investigating to see if Fajr time had arrived or not. Which nowadays is almost like they say, isn't very possible with the artificial lighting that we have outside. It's kind of hard with the naked eye to be able to identify the actual Fajr time arriving. So, to wrap it up, to sum it up, usually you won't find out later if that exact second was Fajr time or not when you actually swallowed that last bite. Okay? So there's not too much to worry about here. This istishab shows itself a lot of places. Any questions now?
Does this apply to moon sighting also?
Moon sighting, the exact same thing applies. For example, before Ramadan arrives, what do? We look for the moon. The only time we're actually looking for the moon. So, I look for the moon, I don't find it. What was the previous state that I'm 100% sure about? That is Sha'ban. So, to say that the month of Ramadan has arrived, I have to become 100% sure, or have one of those, they call bayyanas, that say that Ramadan time has arrived. For example, 2 adil people, 2 just people telling me that they saw the moon. Something has to break it. Either certainty, or something that Islam says you should take as certainty, like 2 adil people telling you that they saw the moon. So until I'm sure Ramadan has arrived, what's the rule? I assume that it's still Sha'ban time.
Will the calendar break it?
The calendar, if it brings certainty to you, as I've said before, identifying these things are all subjective. Yes? Some people, they get upset, they say, why is it that there's a difference in Eid, namaz and all of that? Because at the end of the day, this is not a ruling, this is tashkhis of the mawdu' of a ruling, identifying and applying the ruling. When it comes to application, it becomes subjective. It goes through that filter of subjectivity. Same thing with the end of the month of Ramadan. If we want to become sure that it's Eid or not, what do? If we sight the moon, then so be it. If not, we knew it was Ramadan time, so now we can't say that Ramadan has ended until we become sure. Istishab here once again says, you're not allowed to break it. Yes? And maybe other principles or rules that we have too will also tell us you can't break it. But what's for sure, the minimum is that istishab here comes and says, you can't say it's Eid until you become sure you have exited the month of Ramadan. Yes. So the beginning of the month is easy. We just fast one day before. If we want to, it's Yawm al-Shak, we can fast. The problem is with the Eid time. Because you can't just say, okay, we'll fast and then see what happens, you know? Because Eid, it's not permissible to fast, right? That's the problem. But at the end of the day, some people, they get a little too caught up here. They get a little too emotional here. And they think that we better find out if today is Eid or not, or else if we fast, it's haram to fast that day. It's haram to fast the day of Eid when you know it's a day of Eid. Not that in the Lawh al-Mahfuz, in the ilm of Allah, this is a day of Eid, so I'm doing the sin, I'm sinning in gunah because I fasted a day that was haram to fast on. No, it's subjective once again. We have to understand, when it comes to Islamic law, there's two parts to it. One, the actual ruling. That is not changeable, okay? The ruling, we get it from the marja. It's not subjective, the marja tells me. But when it comes to applying the ruling and identifying the subjects of those rulings, all of a sudden you see that it becomes very subjective. Yeah? One person has blood on his shirt, he's praying with blood on his shirt. Is his salat void? No, it's not void. He doesn't know. Do I have to even tell him? SubhanAllah, no. This is a misunderstanding. People say it's Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahi anil Munkar. To tell him that there's blood on his shirt, or to tell him that instead of facing the Qibla, which is this way, you're facing 10 degrees left or right. These are all in the application of the law. When it comes to application of the law, there is no Amr Ma'ruf. Amr Ma'ruf is when the person knows the ruling and is purposely not living up to the ruling. But here, the person knows the ruling and they don't know that there's blood. So they think that they are a tahir and they're praying with it. It's interesting that the Maraja here say you don't even have to tell them. With the super religious people, sometimes they'll tell you, oh, it's Amr Ma'ruf. It's not even Amr Ma'ruf even. It's not even mustahab to tell them. Unless, for example, let me give you an example. A sister's hair is showing that you know she's a hijabi and respected sister. Her hair is showing from the back, for example. Yeah, other sisters, if they see this, even though it's not wajib shar'an, because once again it's the application of the ruling, but since they know she's respected and she would be happy for us to tell her, then we'll tell her. Or for example, something is najis. Is it wajib to tell people it's najis? Well, if it's food that you put in front of them, it's wajib. Other than that though, it's not even wajib to tell them it's najis. But, if there's a good chance that they'll find out later on and then they put that najis hand in water, in a cup of water, and that became najis, and then other things become najis, their whole life becomes najis, okay, why not tell them, you know? But we're talking wajib and haram, not necessarily when it comes to the application of the laws. Any questions regarding this? Yes?
I want to go back to the previous question about moon.
About
the moon sighting, being that. So it's easier to do that when you have to apply it to yourself. But when you are applying it in the context of a masjid or a community, then how do you use that law?
There it gets a little complicated. Yeah? For the moon sighting, we have to think of a solution. We have to think of a solution because lots of people, they go by the two just shahids that saw the moon. Yeah? But what's interesting is you will always have shahids. And this is causing division. And let me just tell you this, I don't want to open it up too much, but one of these ulama that's in the moon sighting business, and not business, but he's into that and he's the one taking care of it back in Hawza. He says we ran an experiment. It's funny. We ran an experiment where we sent a group, a delegation somewhere to sight the moon on a day that it had been proven scientifically that it is impossible to see the moon. And do you know how many of them had seen the moon that night? It causes issues. It even caused issues a few years back in Qom. It causes issues. So we have to move in a direction where we unify. But there is a problem. For example, you will have Maraja who believe that the moon, sighting the moon with a, what's it called? With tools and telescopes and all of that will count. For example, say Hasnain Or Ayatollah Fadl Lankarani had this opinion, others also have this opinion. But then you will have Ayatollah Sistani, he believes that no, only the naked eye is the criteria. So sometimes it will boil down to this. Yes? A lot of the differences I feel that can be solved. But sometimes it will boil down to just this. And if there's two fatwas, then you will have this issue. Some people say, oh, we must be united. Okay, we're united over 2 days. Okay? It's not 10 days. Okay? We should understand this, that even if it's going to be 2 days, sometimes, not always, but sometimes this happens, it's still okay. I mean, shouldn't see it as a division now. Okay, it's just two fatwas and two different things. Okay, fine. You know? Sometimes something's not that big of a problem, but we make it look like it's that big of a problem. This is also something to be careful about. The damage that praying Eid namaz on 2 days is less than the damage some people cause because of this. This is very important. Sometimes it's perception management. You just make it sound like it's not something that big. Versus, oh, it's something huge, and oh my God, the ummah has been divided. No, we just prayed 2 namazes. Okay, you fasted 1 day more. I know that itself is a tragedy, but it's not that big, inshallah. But yes, if we can find a solution, it would be great. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآله. Let's see how much of this surah, inshallah, we can finish the first part of it at least, if we can finish it by tomorrow. We reached verse 21, the last part of verse 21, that when it's talking about all the good stuff that's given to these individuals, Abrar, Muqarrabeen, Ibadullah, these people, we were taking a tour of the Jannah that they are in and all the good stuff that they're taking pleasure in. The last part of verse 21, which was one of the greater, you can say, blessings of that Jannah, is that the Lord will give them to drink a pure drink. وَسَقَاهُمْ رَبُّهُمْ شَرَابًا طَهُورًا. Of course, once again, translation has a problem. It's not that God will give them a drink to drink. It says سَقَاهُمْ apparently means that He will quench them with. He will quench them with a divine and purifying drink. Okay, let's talk about this a little bit. We said that sometimes drinks are pure, right? You will have a drink that's pure. Water is pure, honey is pure, juice is pure, there's no filth in it, whatever, it's clean, you drink it. Sometimes something is pure in itself, but it can't purify, right? Like honey that's pure honey. Usually when you buy honey, it says pure honey on it, right? Pure honey. Okay, can I wash my hands with it? No. Some things are pure in themselves, but they can't purify it. Some things are pure and they purify. Here, it's talking about a sharaban tahur, a purifying drink. It doesn't say sharaban tahira. It says sharaban tahura. We also have in the Quran verses that talk about a pure drink, not a purifying drink, but pure drinks, good drinks, that don't cause issues, don't cause problems. For example, Surah Qiyamah, verse 19. A drink will be given which will neither cause headache nor intoxication. So it's a pure drink itself. It doesn't cause these issues. Surah Safat, verse 47. It does not distort man's reason, nor will it cause intoxication for the drinkers. So there are drinks in the Jannah that when you drink it, it won't cause these problems. It's a pure drink. But what we have here is a purifying drink. And it's interesting. Remember, if you remember yesterday I said this. The translation says pure drink here. But the same word tahur, somewhere else in the Quran, the same person who's translated the Quran here, he says, when we have tahur, he translates it as purifying there. Okay, then the question is, if you're going to translate it purifying there, why didn't you translate it purifying here? Verse 48 of Surah Furqan. And Allah is the grace bestower who sent the winds as heralds before the rain, and we sent down purifying water from the sky. Over there it's purifying, but here it's not purifying? No. You got to be loyal To the text. إِنَّمَا جُعِلَتْ لِيَ الْأَرْضُ مَسْجِدًا وَطَهُورًا. We also have this hadith that the Prophet has said, or the wording might be slightly different, but it has tahur in it, that the earth was made for me a masjid and a tahur. That the earth was made a place of prostration for me and also a tahur for me. When you don't have water to make wudu, what do? Tayammum. So it is a purifying agent. Yes, wudu is one of when we say do you have taharat or not? Taharat means purity. Do you have purity or not for salat? Yes, I do. Well, what do you do? I have wudu. I have tayammum. I did ghusl. One of these three, right? So the earth has been made a tahur. Tahur means purifying. These are all clues that here also when it says sharaban tahura, it's something special, not like the pure drinks that others have, but it's a purifying drink. Alright, now a question that comes up is, well, before we get to that, let me say this too. So we have three types of drinks in the Quran. One, purifying, which we talked about. Two, pure, that we talked about. And then you have the filthy. Yes? Like what? So Naba verse 25, إِلَّا حَمِيمًا وَغَسَّاقًا. What does غَسَّاق mean? They will drink like molten fire, and what else? غَسَّاق, pus. Have you ever done this in your life? We've all done this, and it feels good too. You have a big juicy zit or pimple, and then you pop it, and then this juice oozes out. Yeah? This might be something that we call ghassaq. On that day, this is what they drink. And it's interesting, shurb al-him, it says, some other verses say, that when they drink it because they need it. I mean, they'll take anything, and they're drinking it like how thirsty camels or deer, I don't know which one it is, him, I forget the exact meaning of it. The way they drink water when they're thirsty, this is how they're drinking this pus. So this filth and filthy drink we also have in the Quran. Okay, now the question that comes up, pure, purifying, what difference does it make for it to be pure and to be purifying? This is where we go. We knock on the door of Allama Tabatabai. He opens the door and he wants to tell us some important things here, some deeper things here. What's the difference between pure and purifying? He says on the Day of Judgment, he says one of the impurities that is out there, and then he proves this through verses of the Quran, which I'm going to just leave that aside. I'll just give you the conclusion that he comes to. Ghafla is an impurity. Yes? Not a physical impurity, but a spiritual impurity for sure. Ghafla. Why? Because if Allah is the greatest blessing that we have on the Day of Judgment, that I'll talk about inshallah, all of this Jannah and all these good things and blessings, they're nothing compared to Allah Himself. If that's the greatest blessing, then what is the opposite of it? Not having Him. Negligence of Allah. That's an impurity. Ghafla. Okay. Here it says that when you drink this, what happens? Allah Ta'ala explains. He says that when they drink this drink, not only does it not bring ghafla, but the opposite happens. More and more tawajjuh to Allah is taking place. When you drink something good, do you forget everything around you? Yes, you forget everything around you. You become oblivious. When you have something good to eat, what happens? You forget your surroundings. You become more, well, not completely, but you become more preoccupied with tasting it and savoring that good taste, right? This is what happens, right? Here he says that this sharab, when you drink it, more of Allah you feel. That's why it's purifying. Why purifying? It's getting rid of some impurities. What is that impurity? Ghafla. That's why they say on Yawm al-Qiyamah, it's like they flick you or they shake you and you realize true Tawheed there. Before, we were all mushrik. I recited this verse before. وَمَا يُؤْمِنُ أَكْثَرُهُمْ بِاللَّهِ إِلَّا وَهُمْ مُشْرِكُونَ or يُشْرِكُونَ. That even mu'mins have some shirk in them. They're supposed to shake us on the Day of Judgment so that it all goes out. All the impurities go out. What impurities? The ghafla. When you die, they say, we took the veil from your eyes, so now you see. What do you see? Everything is Allah. Oh my God. But here we have this ghafla, and Allah created us like this. But we're supposed to try to tear these veils here if we can. If not, they will be torn later. Fine, as long as we're good individuals here. This sharab gets rid of this ghafla. Because ghafla is impurity, it's getting rid of impurity. So why? What is it? It's a purifying drink and wine. And we also have this, I've heard ulama explain this, in the barzakh too. They say in the barzakh you eat and drink. And you take pleasure. They say the pleasure you take is because every time you're eating and drinking in the barzakh, what is happening? What is happening? Veils that were between you and Allah are being torn. I'm not just eating and drinking so my taste buds take pleasure, so I take physical pleasure. No. Something's also happening. Yes, it might taste good and all of that. But at the same time, ma'rifatullah is being added to you. You're growing existentially. So, this is where we sow the seeds. Pay close attention. At dunya mazra'atul akhirah, we sow the seeds here. Interestingly, the fruits, we bite into them of these seeds that we sow here. But the fruits of it apparently is in barzakh that we start eating. I'm not saying this, ulama say this. Once you start eating these fruits, more and more veils go to the side, and your container is growing more and more, so that what happens? Yawm al-Qiyamah, when Allah wants to actually give that which He wants to give, you have the container ready. The veils have been torn. Some people say, oh, we thought that when we die, it's over. All of our actions, we have nothing, we can't do anything anymore. That is true. Just because you're eating fruit after death in the barzakh and you're eating and drinking and all these things are happening, it doesn't mean that, oh, your actions, you still can act. No. You are actually taking the fruit of what you've sowed here. But what is happening is your capacity now is growing, so that when Allah wants to give you stuff, you have the capacity to be able to be the recipient for this. It gets a little deep. Okay, so وَسَقَاهُمْ رَبُّهُمْ شَرَابًا طَهُورًا. We are babies. These blessings doesn't sound that good. We want all the good stuff. This, Allah does that. Who cares? Yes? If Allah is the one who's giving it here, and not the servants that we talked about before, that are like scattered pearls, for us it doesn't make that much of a difference. But our greats, they say, just the fact that Allah is the one that's quenching us there, this itself is one of the greatest blessings. To get an idea of that, let's look at a couple other verses. Other verses that let us know that whenever Allah is in the equation, it gets even better. One of those verses is this. Surah Al-Imran, verse 15. It talks about something called Ridwanullah. Say, shall I inform you of something better than that? Apparently the verses were talking about some good stuff. Now the verses want to end with something great. For those who are God-weary, there will be gardens near the Lord, with streams running in them to remain in them forever, and chaste mates, and Allah's pleasure. وَرِضْوَانٌ مِّنَ اللَّهِ or Ridwanullah. Okay, and then what is that? It doesn't talk about it anymore, the verse. It goes on. And Allah sees best the servants. Allah sees us and what we do. Okay. Can you please open it up? No, we're babies. In this life, although we're 60, 70, 100 years old, because of that ghafla, because of that understanding that has stayed at a low level, we don't see things the way Imam Ali sees things, we don't see things the way our greats see them. We'll say, okay, Ridwanullah, even if Allah explains it a little bit, we'll say, we don't even know what that means. We have to see it later. If that's not enough, this next verse explicitly is telling us that this is something greater than all those other things that you've experienced so far. Surah Tawbah, verse 72. It says, Allah has promised the faithful men and women gardens with streams running in them, to remain in them forever, and good dwellings in the gardens of Eden, yet وَرِضْوَانُ Akbar, something like that. Akbar is greater. Yet Allah's pleasure is greater than all of these things that we said. That is the great success. I think it's ذَلِكَ الْفَوْزُ الْعَظِيمُ. Okay, Ridwanu min Allah, Ridwanullahi Akbar. The verses are letting us know that whenever Allah steps in the equation, something's happening that before that it wasn't there. But does He open it up? No, He doesn't open it up. Because if He does even open it up, we won't know what He's talking about. The same way I've explained this, I've given this example again and again. The same way a child that's on his bicycle says, all I want is my bicycle and my neighborhood. If you explain to him what a spaceship is, if you explain to him what a car is, he might not be that interested. That's all he cares about right now. His video game console, that's all he cares about. No matter how much you explain to him what marriage is all about, does he know what marriage is? No, he doesn't care. Because he doesn't know. No matter how much you explain, he won't understand. Same thing applies here. We have another verse too that's very promising. It says, لَهُمْ فِيهَا مَا يَشَاءُونَ. On the Day of Judgment, in Jannah, we get what we wish for, whatever it's going to be. So it's like the lamp of Aladdin, right? Can I wish for 1,000 wishes? Go ahead. But there are some things that we don't even know. That's why we don't even wish for it. We can't wish for it there because we don't even know. To wish for something, there has to be a something first for you to wish it. There were some things that you can't even wish. Some people ask, can I go to the 1,000th level of heaven? Well, it's saying whatever they want, they'll get. But did you know there's something else above that? How is it? Can you wish it even? The verse ends like this. وَلَدَيْنَا مَزِيدٌ. They get what they want, but we have something more. The ulama, mufassirin, they explain that this more is something that you can't even wish. So, am I going to start moving in this life or not? Inshallah, I am. So this verse that we recited, that ends with sharaban tahura, first of all, the fact that it's tahur and it's purifying itself is one of the blessings, and the second is that it has to do with Allah and the Lord Himself. That itself is one of the blessings. Okay. Now someone might ask, well, when you take pleasure in something, we're talking about ghafla and all that kind of stuff. When you take pleasure in something, your attention is going to that thing at the end of the day. When we're in Jannah, what do you mean when we're taking pleasure in something? That our attention is with Allah. You have to either have attention there or here, not both. It's not possible. And these blessings that you're talking about, the Quran is talking about, is in a way that you become sure that all of your attention is there. Please explain to us how this works. Shaykh Mutahari explains. He says, there, things aren't horizontal. Things are vertical. What do I mean? When you take pleasure in the beauties there, in the na'amat there, in all the good things there, it is a shadow. It is a shadow of Allah's beauty and pleasure. I don't know how to explain this now. In other words, when he bites into that chicken that's singing to him, that we talked about before, that pleasure there itself is apparently a manifestation of taking pleasure in Allah at the same time. I don't know how to give an example. Like let's give this example. Someone's in love. We have to go back to that example again. Someone's in love. He's like in his 20s, he falls in love with somebody. Now everything he looks at, the chair, the wall, is for him his beloved. Yeah, it's happened to you guys. Some of you at least, you know it. Like everything you see is the beloved. Yeah? The guy, he goes out with his buddies for a meal. The meal, it tastes good. He's taking pleasure in the meal, but even while he's taking pleasure in it, still the beloved is there too. Someone will say, this doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. How can we have two pleasures happening at the same time? The answer to that is one, is the physical side. Another has to do with one's fitra and understanding beauty and comprehending beauty, which has to do with our inner side. These are two different things. Yes, they can be there together. In the Day of Judgment, they say that Allah's beauty is so much that even these things that you're taking pleasure in, what happens? At the same time, you're taking pleasure in Allah. To the extent that they say, the huris, they go and they complain to Allah. They go and complain to Allah that, oh Allah, you manifested to this abd of ours, this spouse of ours, you manifested for like a split second or something or whatever. He is in so much pleasure that he forgot about us. That better happen there, because if it happens here, they won't have this complaint. Everything will be set for them here, but for there, this is how it works. It's happening at the same time. But who is this for? This is for lovers. This is for lovers. If I was to define a true lover, what would I define it as? If we're going to find a lover here. True love. True love only can happen between something and a perfect individual. We don't have perfection in this world. Material world equals no perfection. Let me just tell you right away. So when man is falling in love with different things, imperfect things, they call this ishq majazi. This is metaphorical love. It's not real love. Real love only if there's perfection. And that's only Allah. Okay. So if someone's a real lover and these things that we're talking about happen to a lover, that he can take pleasure in something at the same time, he is acknowledging the beauty of the man above. That only happens for a lover. Where are these lovers? Abd. If you want to find a lover in this life, it becomes abd. For example, our Prophet. For example, Imam Ali. Salawatullah wa These are lovers. Let's look at the words of this lover. What does he say? It's famous. مَا رَأَيْتُ شَيْئًا إِلَّا وَرَأَيْتُ اللَّهَ قَبْلَهُ وَبَعْدَهُ وَمَعَهُ. He says that in this life, since I'm a lover, I'm adding this myself of course, I don't see anything except that I see Allah before it, after it, with it, in it, outside of it, everywhere. So what? What do you mean? Well, are you saying this is Allah? No, I'm not saying this is Allah. But when I see something, I see Allah all over it. All over. This is a lover. This is a lover. مَا كُنْتُ أَعْبُدَ رَبًّا لَمْ أَرَهُ. I don't worship a God I don't see. Yes? He's in love. So everything he sees is Allah. The eye of the heart is open. Okay. So a lover. If you want to put it in other terms, an abd, in other terms, let's go back to the beginning of the surah. A lover will be a true insan. That's what we're after. Human being. A true insan. What was happening in the beginning of the surah? Allah said that you were nothing. You were insignificant. Not worth mentioning because you were made out of that mixed fluid. Then I took you through the stages of the embryo and the development of the fetus and all of that. نَبْتَلِيهِ. So that I can do what? جَعَلْنَاهُ سَمِيعًا بَصِيرًا. So that I can make you sami' and basir. And as I said before, you don't call animals sami' and basir. They see, they hear, but you don't call them sami' and basir. Sami' and basir, which Allah also uses for Himself also, these descriptions, it denotes and encompasses a cognition and comprehension also. That aql that Allah has given us. Okay, so all of these stages, so that you become sami' and basir. So what? Next verse said what? إِنَّا هَدَيْنَاهُ السَّبِيلَ إِمَّا شَاكِرًا وَإِمَّا كَفُورًا. Everything is because of this, so that you can choose between these two. If you choose the right one, you are shakir. And what happens? You are different than the animals. I explained all of this before, right? You are different than them because you will be going against your instinct. Although you want something, you're fasting, you say, no, my aql says no, my instinct is saying yes. Unlike the animals, what the instinct says, they do. So to be a human being, I go against the desires that I have through my instinct. Human being. So a lover, let's come back now to where we were. A lover equals a true insan. A true insan does what? Is obedient to Allah and will go against his instinct whenever Allah's command is there. Okay, so we have different forms of beings now, let's talk about, in this world and in the next. In this world we have four-legged animals. Cow, goat, sheep. You know, the stuff we're going to have after iftar. That's what we have in this world, four-legged animals. Then we have what? We're looking with a barzakhi lens here. Then we have two-legged animals in this life. Am I talking about kangaroos? No. Although they're also two-legged. But we're talking about human beings, biologically human being, but essentially and in essence, animal. Is this a lover or not? It's not. He's not a lover. From a barzakhi perspective, from a godly perspective, and the angels that are looking down, and even some individuals who in this life were able to reach a point, they see a two-legged animal. Why? Because the Quran said, "Imma shakiran wa imma kafura." This person chose which path? The path of kafur, ungratefulness, not going on that path that Allah created him for. So we have two-legged animals. And then we have human beings in this world, who are those individuals like the ma'sumin, like the greats, who they don't necessarily have to be an alim. A person who is an obedient servant of Allah will also be a human being. Here, whenever you are a human being, from that barzakhi perspective, you will be getting those pleasures that come along, even in this life. That's why Imam Ali says these things. Now it depends on that level of that insaniyah that you have achieved, of course. It depends on that level. But some people will have this insaniyah here. And then finally, that was category number 3. Category number 4, the human beings that will be human being on the day of judgment, for sure. But here, yes, their animalistic desires are also there, but they are fighting it. They're working out and training themselves against it. Sure, they might not reach the higher levels of insaniyah that allows them to take certain pleasures of the ruh and the soul here. But what's for sure, inshallah, is once they pass this bridge of death, that's when they will see their insaniyah too. And that, because they have the minimum, that shafa'ah will come and will help them grow. Shafa'ah is not only for us to not go to hell, by the way. Let me just say this, that they saw, this is famous, that Shaykh Mutahari, he came to, I think it was his son's dream. I'm not sure who it was. I don't usually relate dreams unless I've heard them again and again from different sources. That he came and he said that I, right now in the barzakh, I am the student of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. And he is teaching me Tawheed. Wow. What does that mean? Inshallah, 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 if we struggle hard enough in this life, we will know what it means when we leave this world. Inshallah, Allah gives us the tawfiq to put into action these words. We have a little bit more left, inshallah, for tomorrow, and we will also tomorrow talk about Al-Imam Al-Hasan alayhi salatu wassalam. And with that, I leave you with another salawat. Salawat al-Muhammad.